Hi, it's Erin with Snowberry Design Co. Welcome back to my channel. This is the place to be to learn how to paint loose watercolor flowers. If you haven't subscribed to my channel already, go ahead and subscribe. Today's video is a little bit different than usual. I'm talking all about paint to water ratios or water control. This is probably the #1 question I'm asked about, so I really wanted to share some helpful tips if this is something that you struggle with. I also created a little cheat sheet with all of the tips and tricks, as well as the practice drill we'll talk about at the end of this video that you can download for free over on my website, snowberrydesignco.com, or click the link in the description box below to get your copy. To get started, you first want to know what to do depending on what kind of paint you're using. So this first kind of paints are in pan sets. These come in a full set, dried, and ready to use. The lid to the pan set is what you'll use for your mixing palette. Next is tube paints. You'll want to dry these out completely on your palette before you begin to paint. Give the paint at least 24 hours to dry before you begin to use them. You'll need to purchase a palette to put your paints on. And my favorite brand is Magello just because it doesn't stain when you rinse it off. It wipes off clean and looks brand new every time, which is amazing. Now that you've picked out your paint, here's how you'll get started. First, soften your paint by adding a drop or two of water right over the top of the dried paint. If you're going straight for the dry color, you won't be able to pick up quite as much of that rich color that you want. And depending on the quality of paint, you may need to re-wet your paint several times as you're painting. The higher quality of paint, the less you'll need to re-wet your paints. Next, mix your paint. Bring the color over to your mixing palette with a paintbrush and mix a puddle of paint with water before bringing your paint over to your paper. Regardless of if you're actually mixing 2 or 3 colors together or not, you need to add water to make your paints work, which is why I almost always bring the paint over to my palette before putting it to paper. One big question I get asked is how to know how much water you need. A good rule of thumb is that your brush should be saturated, but never dripping wet when you bring your paintbrush over to your paper to begin painting. One exception is if you want a lot of water and you're painting a large wash over an entire paper, but since we're painting flowers, I don't usually use that much water. And here are some more tips and things to keep in mind about using water. Water determines how soft and light or how bright your paint color will be, not white or black paint. The more water you mix in, the lighter your color will be, and the less water you add in, the darker and more vibrant your paint color will be. After you've mixed your paint and water together, to ensure that you're not going overboard with water, just tap your brush lightly on your mixing palette, or you can gently scrape the brush along the edge of your palette. Your paint color will stay in the brush, but you'll remove any excess water. You know you're not using enough water if you're getting little white streaks on your paper as you're painting. You can also tell if your brush starts to fray outward. You also want to make sure that you're using the right kind of paper. Make sure your paper is at least 140 pounds. Hot press paper is very smooth and requires a little bit less water, where cold press is textured and will absorb water a little bit better, and your paper won't buckle or bubble nearly as much. Using a higher quality cold press paper will make all the difference in your water control. Check and see if your paper is 100% cotton. If it's 100% cotton and 140 pounds, that is my favorite kind of paper to use because the paint doesn't dry as fast. Okay, here's a fun exercise to practice if you find yourself struggling with water control. Choose one color on your palette you want to practice with. After you've softened your paint color with a little bit of water, now without mixing in any additional water, paint a circle on your paper. Go back to your existing paint puddle. Mix in just a little bit more water to your existing paint. Do this by rinsing out your brush, and then before drying it with a paper towel, mix the water into your paint. Now paint another circle. Repeat that same process, mixing a little bit more water in each time, and then paint another circle each time you add more water. See how light you can get your paint color to be. I hope you enjoyed this technique video. If you learned something new, give this video a thumbs up and be sure to share this channel with your friends. Please tag me on Instagram if you've tried this out and if it helps you at all. I would love to know and I love to see your progress. Thanks again for watching. Bye!